Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 7. It's hard to imagine that we are nearing the midway point of this course, but we are. I'm going to tell you about the upcoming assignments and assessments, and then get into our content for the week, which is focused on spelling and writing. A couple of announcements. In regard to TaskStream, you should have received a confirmation email that your first video was scored. A reminder to make sure that you hit the submit button, because I know that a couple people did not and their video was not submitted. I'm also noticing that a couple of people, when I log in, next to their video submission is an hourglass, meaning that it's still in progress, and I think you may have thought you submitted your video when you actually didn't, because all I can see is an hourglass for you. So if you do not have a score for your first video or for your practice video, it's because you probably didn't hit submit or complete the assignment, and you need to do that in order for me to get access to your video. Also, we are noticing that there is a 500 megabyte limit, so you may need to submit your video in chunks if it exceeds that limit. Couple of announcements regarding spring break. Our spring break for Cal State Fullerton is week 10, which, since our class runs Wednesday to Wednesday, is April 3rd to April 10th, which may differ from your student spring break, so plan ahead. I know a few of you are already talking to the current student's family, the next student's family, to see when the spring break is and if they're going on any trips, because you're going to need to plan around those things. I've created a little bit of a buffer in the schedule for you, which you'll see in a minute, but please make sure you're paying attention to when the student is on spring break and whether or not that will impact your remaining sessions or your sessions with the new student. So the week 9 lectures and materials will be up March 27th, Wednesday at the latest. And then week 10, there will be no lecture, no new content. And then the next lecture will not be until April 10th, probably prior to that, but that is Wednesday, April 10th, is when we will start week 11. Now, all week 9 assignments initially were due April 3rd, but I've decided to extend them for everyone to April 10th. So that would be your 5th assessment artifact and reflection assignment and your case study report and the participation activity that are on week 9, March 27th. Those will not be due until April 10th. If you would like to submit them sooner, kudos to you. You'll probably get feedback and a grade a lot sooner. But if you don't want to submit them prior to April 10th, not a problem. However, you should note that work with student 2 will start the week of April 10th. So you need to plan accordingly, because you need to be ready to go with that second student the week of Wednesday, April 10th, because your first assessment artifact reflection assignment with them is due on the 17th. But there is no video from that session. It's more of the introductory session. You're going to be doing the MRP, or the adolescent MRP and interest survey, and then the QRI word list. So you'll be very familiar with those assessments the second time around. All right, week 7 readings. There are a few things for you to read this week. In Lipson and Wixon Chapter 8, you only need to read pages 356 and 364, which cover informal classroom-based assessments for writing. In Chapter 9, you only need to read pages 417 to 437, which covers structured assessments for writing, like spelling inventories and writing rubrics. It might be a good idea to review Lipson and Wixon Chapter 7, which you should remember reading was on Early Foundations of Literacy. Pages 271 to 306 discuss writing and the development of writing. On Titanium is a Words Their Way scoring guide, which includes a sample of how to score it as well as tips for determining the student's developmental spelling stage and what assessment should happen in that stage. So you will definitely want to read that. And then in the QRI-5, you need to read Chapter 6, which is only pages 40 to 47. This discusses how to administer the word list. The word list materials, I believe, start on page 100, so that's where the materials are. And then for how to administer the assessment of those, check out pages 40 to 47. Participation activity. The discussion forum is back. Don't all jump for joy at once. I was planning on doing it via VoiceThread, but feel that we have an abundance of technology happening already at this point between TaskStream, and it doesn't appear that we have fully mastered TaskStream yet, so I don't want to jump into using a different interface right this minute. So we're going to go back to the good old-fashioned discussion forum on Titanium. What you need to do is view the file Assessment Artifacts for Discussion Forum. It is a PDF that has a sample teacher scoring of a San Diego Quick Assessment and also a core phonics survey. You will need to analyze the assessment artifacts in order to answer the following questions. What do you notice from the assessment results? What phase of word recognition development is this student in? How do you know? You will want to go back to last week's lectures if you are not certain as to what I'm talking about when I say phase of word recognition development. And then lastly, what is your recommendation as the clinician, as the reading specialist, for further assessment and instruction based on those assessment results? This is due March 20th, no late submissions accepted. All right, so that is your participation activity, which will be very similar to pieces of the final where you will have to look at assessment results and make some observations and then plan further assessment and areas of need off of that. So the assignments that are due this week, your fourth artifact and reflection assignment, the forum discussion that I just spoke of, and no video. We should all know by now that late assignments are reduced to 1-letter grade and must be submitted within a week from the deadline, and then any participation activity is not accepted late. Session 4, this is taken from that session guide I put on Titanium. You can see that you need to give the Words Their Way spelling inventory. When you look at that assessment, you will see that there are 3 versions: the primary spelling inventory, the elementary spelling inventory, and then the upper grade spelling inventory. In the lecture moving forward, I will give you information as to which one you should give based on your student's grade. My guess is it will either be the PSI or the ESI. The next assessment you will need to give is a writing assessment of your choice, but you will need to have the student produce some sort of writing sample that you can score using a rubric. So the prompt and assignment you give them is your choice. The rubric you use to score and assess them is also your choice, but we need to see actual written work from the student. And then lastly, you will be giving the QRI-5 word list, which is explained in the reading for this week. There is no video due. Here are some optional assessments, and then I've also put some resources on Titanium in the resource folder for you to check out as well. Taking a look at session 5, that session will be dedicated just to the QRI-5. You will need to find your student's true instructional level and independent level for both narrative and expository. If your student cannot pass the pre-primer level independently, then you will not need to give expository, because expository assessments do not start until the primer level. But if your student student is able to read the primer level and up, you can take a look at their performance on both genres because often it does differ. So your key focus will be giving the QRI-5 for narrative, the QRI-5 for expository, and then doing some sort of celebration and wrap up, because that is it for that student after session 5. Some reminders: continually be adding to your case study report while the information is fresh in your mind, so that come April 10th, when it's due, you're not stressing about getting it submitted. Heads up for weeks 8 through 11, given that there might be some complexities with spring breaks and vacations and all of that good stuff, I just want everyone to be very clear on what is due and when. So week 8 starts March 20th. You will have to read QRI chapters 1 through 5, which is focused on what the assessment is and how to administer it. You will also watch the QRI video clips, conduct practicum session number 5, and there is a video due from session 5, as well as a participation activity. Now in week 9 is where you read chapters 7 through 13 of the QRI, which discusses how to score and analyze the QRI. You will also have 2 additional articles to read, and your assessment artifact and reflection number 5 will be due April 10th. So there's that buffer I talked about. Your artifact and assessment your artifacts and reflection are not due until April 10th, and that is also when your case study report is due. And there is a participation activity. Week 10 is spring break, so there will be no new content and no assignments due, but make sure you get all of those assignments from week 9 in by April 10th, because week 11 starts on April 10th, and at that time you will need to read an article, do your first practicum session with the new student, and begin working on assessment artifact and reflection 1B. Going back to that fieldwork requirement, before I can grade, score, or watch any video with your new student, you will need to submit the parent permission form stating that you have permission to work with that student. And there will be no video from that first session. It will be focused on getting to know the student, doing the QRI-5 word list, and doing the MRP. All right, so hopefully that is clear and you understand what is coming up so that you can plan accordingly, because you're going to want to make sure that you have coordinated with your student any vacations they potentially might go on, or any breaks from school. All right, let's go ahead, and there will be a participation activity that week as well. All right, let's go ahead and start the content for the week in part 2 of our lectures. I will see you back for that.